Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and I got a video tomorrow, Virus Investigations. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you're going to enjoy it. I've been playing around with some military-grade North Korean viruses that I've installed all inside my phone. And let me tell you, they've been grabbing all of my information. It's going to be a fun time. I get to investigate something that the old Hermit Kingdom's doing. But, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I wanted to really talk about, too, is something that just kind of burns me in a lot of ways, okay? Now, I believe we are at the cutting edge of making gaming great. And you know how we can make gaming great is making some of the biggest AAA companies, quadruple A companies actually shit themselves. Because normally this wouldn't be a big deal. For instance, ladies and gentlemen, this Stop Killing Games initiative, I know I've been talking about it all throughout this month, but I promised I would simply because by the time this finishes, I want this to be passed and introduced, and I want the benefits of this, hopefully, to affect everyone around the world, okay? Because anything that scares the scummiest AAA, quadruple A companies in the world, is actually good for gamers, okay? Simple as that. Do you guys love playing video games? I love playing I've been playing video games for a long time. But I will say that a lot of my favorite video games I've been rocking are probably on an average age of, I'm not joking, maybe 7 to 8 years old. Yeah, I play a lot of older games. I play a lot of games from, the beginning of the PlayStation 4 generation, too, because I really feel like that's when a lot of games came out from that generation, took a real good advantage of it, and now that we've got PS5 and Xbox Series S and X, I feel like this is the one gaming generation where it just feels like everything's a slight graphical upgrade, and realistically, this is probably where we're getting a lot of that old online-only stuff thrown at us, even though it existed before, but not to this degree. We're getting a lot of incomplete physical releases. We're getting a lot of games that just have not evolved from a gameplay perspective, okay? Yeah, sure, the visuals might be nice, but, I'm really a guy that's all about the gameplay, okay? If you have good gameplay, for instance, have you ever heard of this game, Factorio? This is a DLC, Factorio Space Age. I have not bought this because I'm still trying to master the original Factorio. This is a very simple indie game that's all about building an infinite factory, and I'll tell you right now, I put more hours into this fucking game. This has consumed more of my life than a lot of the AAA stuff out there, okay? It's not that gaming is in a bad state, I would say. I think a lot of indie games pretty much steal the show. It's just that AAA gaming or quadruple A gaming ain't exactly in the healthiest of spots. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit was a company known as Ubisoft. For anybody that doesn't know Ubisoft, okay, they release games, franchises like Assassin's Creed, which, I'm not really all that into, especially after Shadows now. It's not even completed, just because I realized that, it's a 100-hour game, and after I've experienced 20 hours of it, if I know the remaining 80 hours is the same grind, I just gave up. But there is just one Ubisoft game that I play, Rainbow Six Siege, and even my game hours on that are starting to dwindle a fair bit, simply because of some controversial changes they've made. But before we get into it, one thing I want to just bring up are some of the really stupid points that have been brought up by Ubisoft's CEO. Now, because of Stop Killing Games, they've actually kind of responded a little bit to this. So, for instance, their CEO, Yves Guillemot, goes, by the way, we have to, support for all games can't last forever. So again, this is in response to that Stop Killing Games movement where the CEO comes out and pretty much says, behind a bit of a paywall here, whenever we release a game, we provide a lot of support for that game. We also provide a lot of services to make sure the game is accessible and playable 24/7. If you sold me a fucking $70 game and it was online only, I would expect a company of Ubisoft, I would expect any seller to keep that shit functional for 24/7 as much as they can, okay? If you're gonna sell me something that's connected to a fucking life support machine, I better pray that life support machine be running 24/7, 365, okay? If I see it flatline longer than an hour of maintenance, I'm gonna get a little pissed. And then, of course, they go, we also provide a lot of support for that game. You know, I love live service stuff. In theory, it sounds really good, right? Hey, we'll just keep giving you content every month. In reality, it's much like a drip feed. You know, you see this a lot with things like Grand Theft Auto Online. You get an expansion and they just sort of drip feed you content. They really oversell how much stuff they give you. A lot of times it's just like a somewhat halfway free expansion we would have gotten back in like the Xbox 360 days, the PlayStation 3 days, just spread, you know, over the course of months or seasons on these live service models. But to go down in here, we'll see information regarding the game and how long the game can be played, right? The company provides that information. For instance, the actual articles like The Crew, the game that actually sparked this entire movement, had a badge on the front of the box that would have said something like online connection required. So I guess going to the store, imagine if we lived in a time where single player games like Metal Gear Solid 2 released under Konami or something. You know, God forbid, they had online internet connection required. Why? I don't know. I guess they have some fucking stupid leaderboard feature. But imagine if a single player game like this required it, and 20 years later you wanted to play this shit again, but the servers weren't there, the game was gone. Yeah, we'd kind of be outraged. That's where a lot of kids growing up and a lot of teenagers who are experiencing some of their childhood memories, unfortunately, some games in their future probably either won't look the same or they just won't be around. And ain't that a fucking depressing thought? And of course they write shit like Ubisoft may cancel access to one or more specific online features. And again, that's all written at like the tiny words at the back of a game box, which, you know, I'm sure most people probably don't read. Like, it's about just as little as you can write for fucking basic legal compliance. But thank you, Yves. Thank you for telling us that you have adequately alerted player. Maybe on the front of the box, if for example this was a Ubisoft game, just write somewhere, this is the exact date the game is gonna go. Okay, this is when you're gonna get a dick up your ass, and you better enjoy it because you have no choice. Unless certain laws pass, of course. So basically the CEO goes, all video game publishers are faced with that issue. You provide a service, but nothing is written in stone. And at some point, that service may be discontinued. Nothing is eternal. And we're doing our best to make sure that things go well for all players and buyers, because obviously support for all games cannot last forever. Bro, I swear to God, this fucking entire industry is just, they cannot read, okay? There is some fucking literacy problems going on here, okay? Maybe it's a language barrier, okay? They're a French company, I get it. Maybe there's a problem. Literally in one of their questions, they talk about, won't this result in the end of live service games? As if losing that is such a massive loss for humanity. No. This means the video game industry has an ongoing interest in selling this shit. Since our proposals do not interfere with existing business models, these type of games can remain just as profitable, ensuring their survival. The only difference is future ones, okay, future. Now, again, maybe a language barrier. Future usually denotes things after, okay? After something like this would pass. Will need to be designed with an end-of-life build once support ends. It's not difficult to have done if you have it from the design phase. So yeah, clearly they're just saying, listen, next time you make another one of your Ubisoft releases, just make sure that you have it planned from the beginning that once you remove it, it's not going to be a complete fucking bitch to get it running offline. I don't understand why companies are so against any form of this. Maybe it's just losing access to control that really drives Ubisoft to like this end, to like this just complete like pain where, again, once they realize that people have to, you know, not be 100% connected to their service, meaning that Ubisoft can't just be assaulting them with constant advertisings, you know, microtransactions, all forms of the scummiest business practices known to man. That's, I guess, what really scares them. And mind you, this is the same company, okay, that has kind of implemented some of the dumbest plans that you've ever seen in gaming. You know, they're always finding ways to like hyper monetize them. For instance, you may not remember, but I do, Ubisoft Quartz. This came out literally a couple of years ago. It was an entire plan for them to invest and put like NFTs into like video games, right? Or like find ways to put NFT collectibles. And I don't know what brainchild worked on this. A lot of people said that it's probably the son of the CEO who kind of thought about this, who apparently I think is getting a job at the new Tencent division they have for Ubisoft. So I don't know how. They have a word for that? I think it's like whatever the heck it is. But you go to like the one game they have, which is like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and aside from what they introduced when they first dropped this shit, nothing else sort of came out. No other digits got made. No other form of NFTs got released. This stuff just ended up being silently released and killed. And I don't know why they did it, because the only thing they got out of this was just bad press. And they knew to an extent that they would just get bad press from gamers. But they thought that, yeah, maybe if this takes off, we can just be the one marketplace that takes a cut of everyone's, financial transactions. And you can tell they didn't give a shit about this because they weren't even willing to put it in games that probably could have made a splash. Games like Rainbow Six Siege that are, by the way, the one thing that is like actually successful for the company. And even that they're trying to slowly ruin. One thing that I saw, which was really hilarious, was apparently Ubisoft said something like microtransactions make the player experience more fun. So, just going beyond the whole like stop killing game stuff, this is such a weird like EA surprise mechanics thing that I've read, where again, not many gamers really give a shit about the microtransactions, okay? Now, I'm somebody that has bought microtransactions in video games that I've played. Like, for instance, with Rainbow Six Siege, I put thousands upon thousands of hours into that game. And given that, a lot of the content in that is basically free, sometimes I do feel in the past that it was worthwhile rewarding Ubisoft developers by actually buying like a skin or two every once in a while. But again... To go into what the CEO is saying, he's saying it makes the player experience more fun because players can personalize their avatars or progress more quickly. Now, I love when they say progress more quickly because you know that they're actually designing their fucking slop games with this with a game design that most definitely comes not from the developers. Okay, it's not that the developers are making a game that's good and some asshole from like the top comes down and they're like, wait a minute, hold on. Instead of making a game where you can, enjoy it for 20 hours, can you make it like a 100-hour game? Can you make it so that the person playing this shit is going to get annoyed after 5 or 6 hours of playing and not really making much meaningful progress, just so we can pad out game times that we can show to investors? Is that what he means? Because no, gamers are annoyed because they're actually not able to progress more quickly. Imagine being so brave to say, yeah, we're selling games for $70, maybe $80 now, but maybe if you gave us a little bit more, maybe like $10 extra, we could give you like XP time saver packs, and then you design your game in a way where that purchase almost seems mandatory. Because again, if I don't spend the $10 to double my XP rate, would that mean that I play the game for, fucking 100 hours? Or could I shorten my fucking time investment to your game to 50 hours? Now, again, with the Assassin's Creed Shadows example, because I realized that most of that game was just going to be the same shit after 20 hours in, I stopped playing. Sunk cost fallacy. I shifted my hours to something else entirely. And it's something that you're starting to see with other games that they have too. Now, for anybody that is a Rainbow Six Siege player, this probably hits a little bit closer. But I'm gonna bring you guys in for this if you've never played Rainbow Six. Now, Rainbow Six Siege is a 5-on-5 multiplayer shooter. And the point of it is to basically go up against each other, just like Counter-Strike, except you can blow up walls and do crazy shit. Super fun, super interesting. I've played it for over 10 years because of how fun the gameplay is. But the thing about Rainbow Six Siege is it does take a bit of grinding to get all of the characters. So in order to unlock every single operator in the game, you earn a currency known as Renown. Now, Renown is a currency that, you can earn, hundreds of, maybe 1,000, depending on how long you play a match, how good you do, yada, yada, yada. And sometimes you can get boosters in the game. Maybe you can pay for them or earn them on the Battle Pass's free track, and then use all of that to kind of earn at a faster rate. Now, the game has become free to play, so Rainbow Six Siege is now Rainbow Six Siege X. And because it's free to play, a lot of gamers who have been playing the game have sort of noticed that their Renown earnings have dropped. So this user has basically got a 30% booster. So this is with a booster. With the booster, the guy has earned 108 Renown. Now, I've noticed that overall, my Renown earnings this season have taken a bit of a hit. And I think some of it may just be due to the fact that since the game is free to play, since that initial cost has been taken away, Ubisoft has also reduced the amount of earnings that you can make so that, new players who jump in have to play significantly more matches just to earn the characters, which, by the way, there are a lot of fucking characters in this game at this point. And that, to me, is just a sign of how free-to-play and shitification just comes in and ruins a paid experience. And even if you're somebody that I believe has paid for this game like I have, you also have to share the same nerfs that every other free-to-play player has taken. But you know what Ubisoft did in all this that was really funny as fuck to me? Is that they actually released one of the most expensive skins in the entire game's history. So for anybody that doesn't know, there's elite skins and now there's mythical skins. So the mythical skin is like $40 fucking dollars, apparently, like a $40 skin. That is like $50, I think, maybe in like Canadian, but it's a pretty expensive skin. It's a Valkyrie quintessence of form skin, which looks really out of place. The big thing about it is, I guess, the weapon skin is fucking animated. Now, if you ask me, Muda, is $50 a smart purchase for a skin? I would probably say no. In fact, I would go back to Factorio, for instance, and say that if you were somebody that had the chance to go and purchase, a video game for $45, this game in particular, maybe that's a far better expense of your time, right? In fact, that might actually be fucking cheaper than the skin in Rainbow Six Siege. So let me get this straight. I can buy a game, a whole ass game. Sometimes I can buy a couple games. Or do I buy a fucking skin? Insanity, dude. It's crazy. The only game that I give a shit about with Ubisoft, slowly but surely, they are killing any interest I would have had in that. 100%. It's crazy to see. Now, again, to go back to Ubisoft's point, to go back to the CEO, it's tough to keep a game alive forever. And I get that, okay? Yeah, nobody is asking any company to keep a game alive forever. But just make sure that it runs on our systems after you have forgotten about it. You know how many old games that people go back to all the time? Heck, I was watching Charlie the other day play Resident Evil 1.5 on like his streams. He even uploaded like a leak. He's playing a bunch of old Resident Evil games. And a lot of these games are possible to play thanks to things like emulations. Now they've been re-released, but ultimately they were games released in a single player state with complete offline support. And the thing is, the only reason I bring up these single-player games is I started to notice that there are a lot of single-player experiences that unnecessarily have online features attached to them. Games like Ubisoft's own Ghost Recon Breakpoint, games like Assassin's Creed Shadows, where at least on the console, you need to have an internet connection to install content that could have been provided on the disc to begin with. These are all things that I've started to notice that companies like Ubisoft, companies like Microsoft, the big AAA, quadruple A guys have pushed. And realistically, I want gamers to push back against it. Because there's no reason why these companies should be getting away with some of the worst practices in gaming history, other than like the most casual of gamers letting it fucking happen. But ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mudahar. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because for the first time, I've actually seen Ubisoft scared. It's not often that the fucking CEO of the company comes out and talks, bad about something, unless it really threatens them. Usually with these guys, it's always cutesy press releases. But when the CEO feels personally threatened, yeah, it's a good thing for the gamer, okay? Fuck companies like Ubisoft, and fuck companies for pushing live service stuff onto the industry to the point where the games they release already come nerfed out of the box. Anyways, I'm out.